How I'd allocate my Pokemon investing funds in 2026. Now, it's been a couple of videos, I think, since we've had a discussion-based style video. So that's all this is. There are no graphics whatsoever up on the screen. So you know the drill. If you're going for a walk, pop it on in the headphones. If you're going for a drive, pop it on in the car. Or, of course, you definitely know this drill. Pop it on the telly if you're doing some homework. Yeah, we're all in uni still, aren't we? If you're doing some housework at home, pop it on the telly so you can listen there. No graphics on the screen. Let's just talk Pokemon card investing. First of all, thanks everyone for tuning in. Your support means a lot, particularly continued viewers. There are a lot of you guys and girls that watch every video, and that means a lot. And there's also a heap of newcomers. So if you're new here, by all means, stick around. We'd love to have you as part of the community and discuss all things Pokemon card investing. So I'm going to start off today's video with a sealed portfolio. And the big question is, how do you go about allocating your funds in 2026? It's a pretty tricky landscape to navigate. And look, if we all had a crystal ball, we would know exactly where to put our funds. Like hypothetically, if I had a crystal ball and I could go back in time, I would put 100% of my funds into Evolving Skies. That would have given us the best returns out of any sealed product over the last 5 years. It's as simple as that. Now, we don't have a crystal ball, so how do we go about it? How do we go about exactly where to put your money? Do you put 100% of your money into one product, or do you diversify it out? Moreover than that, do you put it all into booster boxes? Do you put it into Pokémon Center Elite Trainer boxes now that they're really taking off? Do you put it into some Elite Trainer boxes? Or do you go into other products, things like Ultra Premium Collections or 3-pack blisters? That's what we're going to discuss in today's video. How to best allocate your funds, how to be as risk adverse as possible, but also as successful when it comes to making gains as possible. And I think that's the overarching message from any portfolio. Like, I'm not a financial planner, but if you were going to see a financial planner about managing any sort of financial portfolio, you'd want to minimize downside risk as much as possible, but you'd also want to maximize upside potential as much as possible. You want a structured or balanced portfolio, really, that's going to give you the best returns overall. So let's start off with this. Here's how I would allocate my funds. First of all, I would allocate 50% of all funds that I'm spending sealed product on in 2026 into booster boxes. Now, booster boxes are tried and tested. There is little to no, in my opinion, downside risk. Of course, they can get reprinted. That is literally your only downside risk, in my opinion, when it comes to booster boxes. They can get reprinted. If they do get reprinted, of course, more supply hits the market, and therefore they can go down in price a little bit. But that is... well, if we look at the last 8 to 10 sets of Pokemon cards, like there's just been next to no booster box reprints whatsoever. Like, when's the last time you've seen a massive drop? For me, it was probably, Scarlet and Violet base, Paldea Evolve got a small reprint. It feels like since then, Surging Sparks sort of got this weird little restock of booster boxes, which was classed as a second wave drop, which almost felt like a reprint. But since then, it's like, we really haven't seen much at all. Like, where's Destined Rivals? I know the UK got a short second wave of Destined Rivals, but the US, Australia, like, where's our Destined Rivals? One of the most hyped and popular sets. Where's Mega Evolution Base? Where's Journey Together? Where's Stellar Crown? Like, where's Twilight Masquerade? They just don't seem to exist anymore when it comes to booster box reprints. So booster boxes are very, very safe. If we're talking about a structured portfolio, that is where I'd park 50% of my money. Over the years, over the decades now, we could say, booster boxes have performed super, super strongly. Whether it's, of course, early Wizards of the Coast, EX era, moving forward to mid-era. You see this just on repeat. And this is why I think it's safe, and this is why I think you should put 50% of your money into booster boxes. Is they're a deflationary asset, as is all sealed product, but booster boxes more so, because booster boxes have the biggest density of packs. And if people are going to open packs, that's where they're going to turn their money to, or that's where they're going to turn their eyes to. So if you're a rip and shipper, booster boxes are great for that, getting high density of packs. If you're a streamer on YouTube or somewhere else and you want to open a booster box, that is the best way to get the best, bang for buck when it comes to packs. And as a result, because the supply goes down over time, there's a few things that come into play there. A, there's less supply in the market for people that want to buy them to do the ripping and shipping and other things in the future. But moreover than that, the collectability availability of them increases because they become rarer and rarer. So lots of people, including myself, like to collect booster boxes and invest in booster boxes. Like, I love to have the display. Now, this isn't a collecting video. This isn't about, you should put a percentage into this and these single. This is purely an investing video based on where you should put your funds. I just wanted to clarify that. So with booster boxes being a deflationary asset going down in time, supply that is, as long as demand stays okay, then we start seeing increases in price. And that's where the difference comes from. If you were literally to draw a line graph across all booster boxes from, say, Sun and Moon base onwards, you see such a clear correlation between a couple of things. Obviously, over time, we'll see a price increase. Now, that is not linear. It's not linear, and it's not the exact same based on set. So when it comes to investing 50% of your money into booster boxes, you also need to be careful about what boxes you're investing that money into. And like I said, if I had a crystal ball and could go back in time, I would have just put all my money into Evolving Skies. If it's purely investing, who cares about the collecting side and having one of each? If it was purely based on investing, that's where I would have just parked all my money, into Evolving Skies booster boxes. Now, that's not the case. So I talk a lot about this on this channel is, what are the best booster boxes to buy? And for me, it always comes down to chase cards. There is such a clear correlation over history. You do every XY era booster box, every Black and White era booster box, every Sun and Moon era booster box, every Sword and Shield era booster box. And now, even with Scarlet and Violet starting to get a tiny bit of age behind it, the same thing rings true. The higher the total set value, the more expensive the booster box. And as time goes by, supply doesn't come into play as much because supply erodes. If there's plenty of supply, it's generally because it's been a popular set. And if it's a popular set, people are going to want to open it into the future. If it's popular new, it's going to be popular secondhand. That's why it got printed heaps. That's why Prismatic gets print run after print run, because it's so popular. People want to open it. There is money to be made there for the Pokemon company. So as you can see, over time, there is just a clear correlation between total set value and booster box price, and that is the chase cards. So if a set has good chase cards, that's going to be a strong indication that it's going to be a good booster box to invest in. Now, the other thing that comes into play, which I don't want to touch on this because this is about managing where you put your portfolio, is essentially, how much or what entry point price should you get into for booster boxes? Like right now, should you still be buying Evolving Skies? That's a conversation for a different topic. If you can get in, of course, at recommended retail price, that's phenomenal. If you have to pay a little bit over, that is also okay in this market at the moment. Now, the second place I would invest my funds, I would invest 25%, if you can, into some sort of Pokémon Center exclusive products. And at the moment, of course, it's Pokémon Center Elite Trainer boxes. They, in some cases, if it's the right Pokémon Center Elite Trainer box, are actually outperforming booster boxes. We've seen it with, and look, quite often it's for holiday sets which don't have booster boxes because they then take over as the premier product. So of course we've seen it in Prismatic Evolutions, we've seen it in 151, we've seen it now in Ascended Heroes. Ascended Heroes Pokemon Center Elite Trainer boxes are very expensive. If you could buy them at recommended retail price off the Pokemon Center, you've made so much money because as soon as they hit the secondary market, they're like 3, 4, 5x their price. It's absolutely insane. It's not often that a mainstream set Pokemon Center Elite Trainer box will outperform its booster box counterpart. It can sometimes based off two things. One, the Pokemon Center Elite Trainer box being a bit more exclusive. That goes to show that people care about volume when it comes to sealed product. If there's less of them being made, that adds some importance to the price of that product. The other thing that comes into play, of course, is the promo. If it has a really strong promo that's worth a lot raw and even more as a PSA 10, because quite often the promos from Pokemon Center Elite Trainer boxes are pretty hard to gem into 10 because it's inside the wrapping and that just makes it a little bit more tricky. It's prone to a little bit more damage. But one that comes to mind straight away from me is Obsidian Flames from Scarlet and Violet. The Pokemon Center Elite Trainer box has strongly outperformed the booster box. So if you can get some Pokemon Center exclusive products, I think Elite Trainer boxes at the moment, particularly for holiday sets, and again, it's if you can get your hands on them, they have been performing so strong. And even if you can't get them exactly off the Pokemon Center, because we all know they're getting botted and it's difficult to get, but if you can buy them straight away as soon as they hit the secondary market, like I'm talking Ascended Heroes, right? Even if you didn't get it at its Pokemon Center Elite Trainer box price and you had to pay $300 straight away on the secondary market, look at them now. the gains you can make off them is still absolutely incredible. So it's not the worst thing if you're having to allocate your funds to them as soon as they hit the secondary market. Give them a month or 3 months or 6 months, and that's when it's probably not the right time to buy them, because they seem to be making parabolic gains very quickly if it's from a good set like 151, Prismatic Evolutions, Ascended Heroes, etc. Before we jump into the third place I would allocate my funds to, I did want to give a shout out to today's video sponsor, which is of course the Collector app. This is the one-stop shop for everything when it comes to Pokemon investing and collecting. I use it all the time. I use it for so much data, particularly when it comes to set analytics. You can look at every set inside the Collector app. You can track down the top hits. You can see which cards have been performing well, and in particular your own portfolio. You can constantly keep track of your own portfolio and how that is performing, what market movers you have in your portfolio, and that could be indicators of time to sell. If it's had massive price growth in the last 6 months and you want to cash in, this app tells you all that stuff. It is so good. Again, there'll be a link in the description to download that one. Right. We've got 25% left. I've said 50% allocated into booster boxes, 25% into some sort of Pokemon Center Elite Trainer box or Pokemon Center exclusive product. Thirdly, Elite Trainer boxes. Now, for me, these come down purely these days as a collectible. We're not talking about that. We're not talking about me. Like, I buy them as a collectible, and if they go up, so be it. But if you buy the right ones, they can also perform really, really well. I think when it comes to Elite Trainer boxes, a few things come into play. It needs to be from a good set. That is so important. And it also needs to have nice artwork on it. So if we're purely talking from an investing standpoint, there's two from Sword and Shield that really come to mind. One is Evolving Skies, of course, because A, it's from a really good set, but B, the artwork. Like, you have the evolutions on the artwork. That adds weight to that, because what happens with Elite Trainer boxes, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense buying an Elite Trainer box to open packs over buying a booster box. The dollar per pack you get out of a booster box is lower than the dollar per pack you get out of Elite Trainer box. So it makes more sense to buy a booster box. It really, really does. But from a purely aesthetic and collecting standpoint, Elite Trainer boxes are very highly sought after as collectibles in the sealed Pokemon space. That's just a fact. And what do people care about in that instance? They care about a nice looking one. Like, there's so many cool looking ones. Think back to even Sun and Moon era, when you had, Unbroken Bonds, when you had Team Up, Celestial Storm. Those Elite Trainer boxes have such cool artworks, it adds to the value of them. And the second one from Sword and Shield that I wanted to mention to you was Fusion Strike. It's quite a strong set. It's not as strong a set as Evolving Skies, but it's still quite a strong set. And moreover than that, the artwork on the Elite Trainer box is absolutely beautiful. You've got the pink colors in the background, you've got Mew inside there. Like, I think if we're going to be investing in Elite Trainer boxes, really focus on that. A, how good the set is, but then B, what is the artwork like? What is the Pokemon that is the center of the Elite Trainer box? All of those things do come into play there. And finally, we've got 5% left. I think this is the part that you can have a little bit of a gamble with, like throw the dart at the board. And maybe this is 10% for you or 15% for you, but for me, it's 5%. That's other products. So ultra premium collections. And look, ultra premium collections, I would almost put in the basket of the Pokemon Center exclusives, in that you probably could allocate a bit more funds to some of these because they can be performing really well. Like, if you can pick up 150, if you'd picked up 151 UPCs, things like, the Charizard UPCs from both Sword and Shield and the Phantasmal Flames ones, these I would almost rank in that 25% with Pokemon Center Elite Trainer boxes, but the other products could just be a good collection box. I remember there was an Arceus figure collection box. It only had 4 packs inside it. You got a beautiful figure in there, but it also had a Cosmic Eclipse pack inside there. And this was quite deep into Sword and Shield era. And it was probably just old stock of Cosmic Eclipse packs they had left over. But these are quite cheap. Like, that's a dart at the board. You go, yep, that's a cool product to pick up, because look, I don't want thousands of collection boxes stacked up. The other ones are things like when we had during Evolving Skies, the Flareon, Vaporeon, Jolteon, the VMAX. In fact, I got one next to me. I said there'd be no graphics on the screen, but you might be able to see. Like, these collection boxes are a no-brainer. Something that has good pack selection inside it and good promos. You don't want them taking up all your space, but they could perform really, really well. Even 3-pack blisters, like Evolving Skies 3-pack blister with the Umbreon inside there. It's just a no-brainer. So 5, maybe even 10% of your money should be put towards those good collection boxes that will probably perform really, really well. And again, what makes a good collection box? The pack selection inside it and the promos. And if it has some sort of niche figurine, well, that just makes it even stronger. Well, there you go. That is how I would structure my portfolio in 2026. How would you structure yours? And here's one. Just a final note, don't get caught into this trap. A structured portfolio is really, really important for performance. Don't just put 100% of your money into following the herd. Don't put 100% of your money into following a product that's super hot right now, because it might not be super hot into the future. It might still be, of course. What I'm getting at is like Phantasmal Flames now, I think, is urging on or nudging on over, is it somewhere between $400-500 US a booster box? If you're just going, oh, this is so hot, that Charizard's awesome, it's generational, it's going to go forever, Phantasmal Flames to the absolute moon, and you just parked all your money, 100% of your money into Phantasmal Flames Elite Trainer boxes and booster boxes, again, you could do really well. Maybe it does go to the moon, but I don't think that's presenting a structured portfolio. Phantasmal Flames riding on the coattails of just this whirlwind that is that one chase card at the moment could prove crazy good, but it could also prove crazy bad. What are your thoughts down below? Please let me know. I'm Michael, this is PokeOz. Thanks again, everyone, and I'll catch you all next time.